For people who haven't heard it yet, at this point of the story in Fouad of Nazareth, the camp is playing some classic summer camp games, right? Like tug of war crimes,
Yeah.
hide and go seek asylum, and duck, duck, run for your lives. Classic summer camp games, right? And eventually they get to a game which is sort of just trivia, Jeopardy, but it is all about Palestinian identity and being Palestinian. So it's this fast-paced kind of rap, like Hamilton-esque, like inspired number where it's all about just Palestinian media and even just like cultural, political themes.
Welcome back to War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. This podcast is about many things. It's about challenging the myths used to justify war. It's about following up on history to see whether the wars actually accomplished their stated purpose. And it's about musical theater. I bring up musical theater at every given moment. So I'm so excited. My guest today, Fouad Dakwar, is a multimedia artist and 2025 Jonathan Larson Grant recipient. Hell yeah. Measure Your Life in
Thank
Love.
you.
Whose subversive comedy channels his Palestinian immigrant upbringing with a punk rock twist. So I'm so excited. You just dropped a concept album. Tell us about the album.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on, Orli. A fan of the pod, so this is exciting. I would love to talk about the album. It's actually a concept album for a musical that I've been working on for 4 years now. It's called Fouad of Nazareth, and my name is Fouad. So if the title doesn't already give it away, it's a semi-autobiographical story. It's all based on the time I revisited my birthplace of Nazareth. And I always have to clarify, not the Nazareth in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That one is a knockoff, just got to make sure that that's clear. But when I got to Nazareth, I was sent off to a summer camp, a Palestinian summer camp. And again, just to clarify, not a refugee camp, a summer camp. And so it's this rock, in Arabic infused pop rock album about my experience attending this summer camp in Palestine.
It's amazing. And like, at risk of sounding corny, but like music truly is the universal language. Like listening to it, I was surprised by how nostalgic I felt. Like because I grew up during the golden age of teen angst musicals. I had the privilege. Were you a Spring Awakening kid?
Absolutely.
Oh
I
my
actually
gosh.
got to perform in it when I was a teenager.
My God, who did
Life-changing
you
experience.
play?
Who do you think?
Moritz?
N-
I'm sorry.
I'm
You're a
Melchior.
Melchior? Oh my gosh, yeah. I just assumed
There weren't
comedy.
many boys at the camp. This is a different camp, musical theater camp. Anyway,
That's so funny. I'm impressed. I just assume, yeah, all comedy people go for the character role, but no, you were the romantic lead.
it's true. It's true. Romantic is a big word for that show,
Yeah,
but yeah, love it. Um, and that music style definitely influenced what I do.
the
tongue in cheek.
music style, but thankfully not the lyrics. I would say like Fouad of Nazareth is Spring Awakening, but with better lyrics, because like the lyrics actually make sense. Because what the hell is Purple Summer? When you were
See, I happen to love a little, you got to parse through it. Some of my favorite movies are David Lynch films, but yeah, my lyrics are a little more, what's the word I want to use to not piss off my musical theater icons? To the point, a little.
fewer metaphors.
There you go.
It's funny with Spring Awakening because like I was a teenager and I was listening to it, so I'm like, this just must be way too deep for me to understand. And then I got older and I'm like, maybe it's just words. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But yes, so who are your influences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you named one already. I feel like that rock musical world is definitely part of it. I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Larson. Like, I hope to walk in his legacy in terms of making like rock and roll musical theater that is both, heartfelt and humanity forward and political, all those things. But then outside of musicals, there's that whole other world of like the music I grew up on as like a 2000s, immigrant to New York. I had a neighbor who lended me his iPod Nano, which was filled with like Linkin Park, Fall Out Boy, Green Day. So I had this like alt rock influence, and it definitely shows up on the album, I think.
Yeah. And what other roles did you play? Like, what else is on your
God, we're getting
theater
into
resume?
okay,
We're
I'm
going
almost
all in.
tempted. We're going all in. So I told you this before we started recording. I'm calling in from my childhood bedroom because I'm dog sitting my mom's dog. And actually, right in front of me, when I was a kid, I would write on the wall every time I was in a show. So literally in front of me, I have a cheat sheet on the wall.
Oh, perfect.
It all started 2012, right there, Once on This Island, one of my favorite, musicals. Again, not a very rock score, but the storytelling is so well done and very political, from the writers of Ragtime, the at least the music side. And anyway, that was I played Tauntaun, the dad.
That's sweet.
Is this
One
helpful?
small girl in a tree. Yeah, that's good. That's range. The dad and the Casanova.
My resume on the acting side very varied, and there's a reason I only perform in my own show now. What actors do is so impressive to me, and I love that we're not talking about war right now. Which let's get into it because that's the whole other side of my musical. But acting is such like a you have to be in the moment and present, and I am more so in the writing sphere of I'm thinking 10 steps ahead of what is this story beat that I have to land, and this line as a comedian, I want to make sure that the callback is going to land 10 minutes from now, so I say it the specific way instead of like just really being in the character. So I think I'm leaving this wall of roles behind. But range is one word for it.
And also, for the people who are watching, tell us about this shirt that's
Oh, I was
repping
waiting for you to
behind.
ask.
Yes.
So you may see it says I spent Super Bowl Sunday at a Palestinian pop punk musical. Does it say pop punk or just punk? Oh, just punk, just punk. Um, and the story behind that is Fouad of Nazareth first premiered at Joe's Pub at the Public Theater. And originally, when we talked to Joe's Pub, they said they only had one date available, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. And I panicked a little bit. I was like, would anyone understand? Would anyone want to show up? Is everyone at their parties? Turns out not much overlap between Super Bowl Sunday watchers and punk Palestinian musical watchers. So we sold that out, and they offered us a second date. But we got to sell this shirt, and it was all a fundraiser for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. And since then, the show has just continued to evolve, and you know, we can get into it.
Yes, yeah. What is the experience like? Reliving your adolescence, which is very brave, sounds terrifying. It's like I keep thinking about how Taylor Swift like bought back her masters just in time so she wouldn't have to re-record the stuff she wrote when she was 15. Like there people would literally spend $1 billion so they wouldn't have to go back to that place. So what is that process like? And I'd love to hear about like the people you've met that forgo Super Bowl Sunday for Palestinian punk musicals.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing I'd say, and again, I want to get the anti-war audience back in the mix. This isn't just for the theater kids. This
Yes.
episode, I hope. And just to say that, like, really, the core of this musical, it is exploring my younger self, and I think all of our younger selves of a coming of age story that is about being a fish out of water. I feel like we've all had a version of that experience. But then using that universal experience to talk about Palestine and to, in my case, talk about being Palestinian, and also to really touch those third rail topics that have been completely erased from the mainstream. And culturally, Palestinians have been completely missing from pop culture. I mean, Mohammed is really carrying the title there. So very grateful to him and all the other amazing Palestinian artists who have come before me. But really, I'm trying to use these universal languages, like you said, of music and comedy to reach a wider audience. And the bar is pretty low, Orly, of like prove we're human too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry you have to do that. Yeah.
right. But beyond that, changing policy down the line and looking at a multi-generational cultural shift as well, which I do think art is capable of and has proven to be capable of. Um, that to answer the question there, I think that makes it all easier to dive into. Just the story is I took notes while I was at this actual summer camp in Nazareth, and I dug them up 10 years later. And at the time, I thought I was writing a book. I think I wrote notes for my book, and the title of
Wow.
the document was yeah, "Culture Shock Notes," because I was dramatic as hell from day one. um, and basically, I just wrote down like what had happened each day in like little bullet points, and some of them were hilarious. Some of them were like uh, tug of war here is just war. Um, which, I had to use that joke in the actual show. Another one was like, someone had said, there are no boyfriends here, only husbands. Iconic. These were musical numbers in themselves. So I dug them up while I was a grad student at Berkeley NYC's master's program in musical theater writing, and that's where I like really started delving into it. And it was hard. I to answer the actual question, it was hard to like dig up a past version of myself who had a lot to learn. But I think it's the way to communicate with all of us is using that teenage angsty, really like awkward period that we can all relate to in some way.
And I love the journey it- of the character Fouad, yeah, learning how to pronounce his own name. That resonated with me as an Orli. It's Hebrew, but I am not Israeli. Sometimes I joke that my parents didn't know that when they named me. So talking to people who pronounce my name better than I do, like the equivalent of the glottal stop till you drop is like the like rolling R, the like ugh, yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ugh, yeah.
That's exactly like again, it's a universal experience, even though like that completely different experiences on paper, like actually we share a lot in that way of the naming and we all I don't know, I think can relate to little pieces of this story.
And the
That's
pressure to find a
hilarious.
husband at summer camp. Like I stopped going to Camp Rama like at puberty because it got too overwhelmingly horny. Like that's yeah, that's hilarious just how universal that is.
Although it got so horny, but some of us didn't get to actually experience the horniness for ourselves. So you have to write a musical about it 10
Yeah.
years later to like
It wasn't a
make
full spring
yourself
awakening.
no, it was not.
And
That's hilarious.
thank you. Yeah. And so the people you've met, have people come up to you after the show and either trauma dumped or because it's such a profound way to connect.
I mean, I will say there's one in particular, one of my coworkers, her husband came up to me after the show, like clearly very moved and was like, I grew up, in Italy and then I moved here and I had the same experience as like an Italian American. And I was like, wow, okay, there is something universal here in that story. That's Dolly to,
Yeah.
use it. There you go. There you go. Just spreading so that was like one I really remember. But beyond that, like every time we do the show, I look out in the crowd because for now I perform in it as well. I'm hoping like Rami Youssef or someone will step in my place at some point. um, Maybe Emil Wakim, Emil, let's talk. Can you sing? Anyway, or worst case scenario, we'll do a High School Musical.
Or
I'll
fair,
like overdub the singing.
or Andrew Garfield learned how to sing to play Jonathan Larson. So like it can be done.
I mean, in that he crushed it in that, so that's
Yeah.
promising. And another very like advocate for Palestinian human rights. You know what? Let's make the character white. Andrew, get in here.
No.
It's
We already
I just
have there's yeah, there's already the German teen singing. Like it's time to give someone else a chance.
fair point. I was just gonna say that looking out at the audience when I'm on stage, it's crazy the varying types of people that are out there. Like, we talk a lot about diversity, but it was diverse in like, age, in gender, in race, all of the things. And it really, I think, reflects what the Palestine solidarity movement is and is increasingly evolving to be a unifying call for justice, not only in Gaza and the rest of Palestine, but across the world, I think. So I have been very moved by a lot of the people who have resonated with the work. And the last piece I'd say is, we were joking before this, right before me, I was listening to your podcast with Dr. Abdullah Sayed, and I think it's hilarious that you had a musical theater writer, on just a couple episodes after, a very viable Senate candidate who is very, in a position to really change the American policy. Um, in all things, but especially on war. And I do think people, though, also want a more subversive way to talk about these issues and topics. So I think people needed this sort of experience, this show that's not hiding from the politics, but actively talking about it in a way that is uplifting, that is funny somehow, because that's how we survive, you know?
And human, like it's the humanity. It, it yeah gets flattened and lost coming from other forms of media. It's crucial for people to lock in and hear these human stories by humans. I'm so sorry that you have to re to say like, "Hey guys, I'm a human too," but you do it in such a beautiful and moving way that I'm sorry you have to do it, but you do it
Thank you.
very well.
Thank you, Orly. What I will say is that the way to actually be like, I am human, is by showing characters who are just full people and sometimes shitty people. And, you know, one of the breaking points for me of this show when I discovered what the musical was realizing, oh, this character version of me, Fouad of Nazareth, who I literally in the script fully write out Fouad of Nazareth every time to
That's
remind me that
funny. All the
this isn't me.
dialogue.
But yeah, I think maybe one day I'll actually cut it down because for ease of reading, but for now, it's always Fouad of Nazareth. And for like the reason I do that is when I discovered this is a character, not me exactly to a T, it actually allowed me to uncover a lot more about who he is as a character. Let him be, you know, sometimes people write these semi-autobiographical shows and make themselves this hero in the story. And I don't think that is very successful theater. I think good theater, any sort of art form storytelling is critical of oneself too, and is reflective on that. So I made Fuad kind of like more more uh unoblivious, I think, to being Palestinian, to his identity, allowed him to sort of mess up a lot. And I mess up a good deal, but he goes, you know, above and beyond. And that's good comedy, you know. And again, I think this piece is what unites all of us, is this using comedy not just as a coping mechanism and survival mechanism, but like to like gain some power back in situations where we've been deemed powerless, you know?
Yes, and yeah, you mentioned Fouad of Nazareth's relative ignorance. Tell us about the number. So you want to be Palestini? It's an
Oh
excellent
yeah.
number, and like La Vie Boheme esque in like what it name drops, and then and hopefully the people going in, like it's funny. I like learned what Carmina Burana was because I was just singing it to La Vie Boheme. So the Palestinian La Vie Boheme, and then people can go to Google it if they don't know it yet.
That is an honor for you to say that. I had never thought about that connection, but you're right. It's just for people who haven't heard it yet. At this point of the story in Fouad of Nazareth, the camp is playing some classic summer camp games, right? Like tug of war crimes,
Yeah.
um, hide and go seek asylum, and duck duck run for your lives. Classic summer camp games, right? And eventually they get to a game which is sort of just trivia, Jeopardy. Um, but it is all about Palestinian identity and being Palestinian. So it's this fast-paced kind of rap, like Hamilton-esque, like inspired number where it's all about just Palestinian media and even just like cultural, political themes. My favorite bit in it is it's this rapid fire like speed round, and it's like 242 is best known as a UN resolution, which has called for our land back amidst our destitution. And then he asks, "What's the most believed in fairy tale? The two-state solution."
Yeah.
Um, and the main purpose of Oslo was to quash the revolution. So again, it's like I'm saying all these very these things that have been missing from the mainstream narrative. That like what the two-state solution has been deemed, you know, by these right-wing maniacs who are putting settlements all over like what would have been a Palestinian state. And it just isn't a feasible option anymore because of what they call facts on the ground. And in this one little couplet, I'm able to sort of say that and get a laugh out of people and really make them maybe think about, oh, this thing that I've heard every politician my entire lifetime like spew out as like the go-to talking point when asked about Palestine and Israel. It's a fairy tale for this. Like maybe I should look more into that. At least that's my like very optimistic view of it. At the end of the day, I think it's just a funny line too, but it has that hopefully depth behind it.
It is a great line and good rhymes. What would you say like was the hardest or nichest word to try to like find a rhyme for?
That is an amazing question. One of the ones I'm most proud of, the word Falastini, which in Arabic is Palestinian, and again, it is the name of that song. So you think you can be Falastini. Throughout the show, I've been trying to like, I tried to rhyme a bunch with it. There was one song that was cut that was called like something about be Falastini or something. That one of my favorite rhymes that I came up with was, what does it mean to be Falastini? Is it climbing a wall and knowing you could fall? Is it picking an olive tree to make a martini?
Wow.
Um, or is it always answering your mama's call? Like, anyway, martini. Um, these are the things that go into my head.
That's fun. I love it. I was going to say how the halal sausage is made, but no, you're a Palestinian Christian.
It's
So
true.
tell us about like what's unique about that experience that as little as Palestinians are represented in pop culture, Palestinian Christians even less.
It's a great point, and another core part of this show. Like not only is it best summarized by a Palestinian trivia game, I think that shows the like contradictions that we're talking about in this musical, but also this identity that I hold as a Palestinian Christian Catholic, actually baptized to
Oh, okay.
add
So
another level.
congrats on the cool Pope. Like, let's talk about how cool the
Thank
Pope
you. He's
is.
crushing it. I would love to.
And yeah, literally feuding with the president. Like, oh my God. But
It's
sorry, yes.
kind of, I mean, yeah. So, okay, sorry. So let me finish the list and then we'll get back to the Pope, who, I'm very grateful for being outspoken. Because you never knew after Francis, you're like, will someone be as, willing to fight the power in the same way? And, it took a minute, but we're getting there. And okay, so Palestinian, Christian, Catholic, immigrant, New Yorker, because I grew up my whole life in NYC. And then I also have Israeli citizenship, um, to make matters, even more complicated. So growing up, like what I realized was I sort of blow people's minds because they do immediately assume I'm Muslim. And then when I tell them, oh, no, I'm actually Christian, then they're like, oh, like, it's just every assumption that they had is completely destroyed. And on top of all of that, of course, me being a comedy musical theater writer, two art forms that have been, like uplifted by Jewish artists in particular. When I tell people, oh, I'm a comedian, musical theater writer, grew up on the Upper West Side,
Yeah.
their immediate instinct is that I am Jewish. So it's what I realized it's a superpower to communicate with people of all backgrounds. I pass censorship by just like, again, blowing people's minds a little bit.
Yes. So you're an Israeli citizen. So does that mean you can vote? When the time comes, like you got the power, do you have faith in that political system to go and vote, or is that a lost cause?
Currently, personally, don't have much faith in it.
Yeah.
I will say again, they also don't have like a ballot. What's it called?
Absentee.
Absentee. Thank you. So I'm I'm not going over there. And also, just it's that tough thing where there isn't really a party that truly represents Palestinian liberation. In that way, there has been. I do want to be upfront that there has been some internal debate among Palestinians of what we call the 48 territories, citizens of Israel, who, yeah, they have the same debates we kind of have here, as the leftists here, about like when is it worth voting for a lesser of there they have multi parties, many evils, I guess.
Yeah.
And there is an Arab party, but they are even disappointing in some ways, but not my area of expertise. I'll bring my parents on next time. They can tell you all about that.
I want to talk about the opening number because it's brilliant. You'll describe it better than I do, but it's just the excellent exposition and political commentary just by nature of how it's structured.
Thank you for saying that. Inside scoop for your listeners.
Yes.
The song In Myriad that I think you're talking about is no longer the opening. It's
oh
been
my
moved.
gosh, already?
Yeah, there's a new written opening that I didn't write it in time to get it on the concept album. So there's a reason to make it to the show whenever we can get it all on its feet. With that said, the song you're talking about, which used to be the opening and was a really big breakthrough for the musical, is about me going through Israeli border patrol, which, as you can imagine, as a Palestinian, can be a little complicated and interesting. Um, and so, okay, the opening scene is Fouad is being sort of interrogated by this offstage border patrol guard, and initially he asks question one. First he figures out that he's Arab pretty quickly from his name, and when he figures out he's Arab, he's like, ah, shit, now I gotta get the other form and the bigger gun.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so that line I think really unlocked what this musical is. It's satirical, it's campy, it's over the top, and yet says everything that we know to be true from this lived experience. Yeah,
Yeah. Did you even have to exaggerate anything for
good point.
comedic
I will
effect?
say
Yeah.
there are some moments I had some fun with that I can tell you some other bits that I really love from the full script that I feel like pierce that satirical element of the show. But just to finish that piece, then Fuad gets like question one, and this is all true. They actually ask you this: what was the name of your father's father? That's a real question they ask. And then you have to do some thinking, like, oh, that's my grandpa on my dad's side. And lucky for me, I'm named after my grandpa, and it's like
Cute.
that was easy. I'm like, oh, it's Fuad. And then he asks, okay, question 1A. What was the name of your father's 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 father? He trails off. The song starts up. Or Fuad gets to this heightened, and the interrogation takes a turn. And suddenly, I do heighten it a little bit, where the border patrol. What was the name of your first grade teacher? What color was your favorite pet? And then it goes to what month did your parents conceive you?
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. It's absurd. They don't actually ask you that, as far as I know, in interrogation. So, yeah, is that sort of answering
Yeah,
everything?
absolutely. And does it really resemble the process of trying to recover a password? Like all those
That's
deep
what I was going for.
cuts. Yeah.
That was the bit.
And then I was thinking too, I'm like, I'm born in November. What does that mean? I,
Yeah, you have to
my
do
parent,
-9.
yeah.
Exactly. That is the exact experience I wanted to sort of bring up in people. Um, yeah, and then again, like the like pop punk element, like there's this angst to it, and then underneath every song with these, punchlines that are coming at you constantly throughout the show, there is a deeper emotional element. So Fuad's like core idea, and again, I'm speaking of him in the third person because not fully me. Um, he discovers sort of I've been through all of this before, and that this sort of interrogation process is something he goes through every day in New York, especially with his multiple quote unquote complicated identity. He is constantly answering people's questions and being asked in this way. So it's nothing new actually, and that's a breakthrough for him.
And what do you say? Yeah, then he leans into it and just, yeah, embraces all the contradictions. That's the journey.
I think so. I think that's where he needs to get to. I will be honest, I'm still rewriting the piece every few months. And actually, I had a big breakthrough this past week rewriting another draft. And I lost count of how many drafts at this point. But he reclaims his power in this interrogation. So at the end of the interrogation, we're on question 772. And the Border Patrol guard asks him, what's your life like back in New York? And in real life, Fuad's parents have just gotten divorced. That's why he's getting sent off to visit his extended family and his homeland for the first time. And let's be honest, he's kind of a loser and he doesn't fit in anywhere. He doesn't belong. How could he with all these identities? Um, but he decides to sort of swindle the Border Patrol guard, and he tells him, wow, like my life back in New York is awesome. Like my parents, they love each other like so much, so much. Like you hear them having sex through the door like all the time. Like takes it too far. But point is, I think that's the breakthrough I realized for him. He needs to reclaim agency in that moment. And again, that's what this musical sort of has been for me, is like a chance to tell my story, and a Palestinian story that's not ignoring the suffering that's placed upon us day after day and only seems to get worse in this genocidal assault, even amidst a quote unquote ceasefire, but to still tell a human story to laugh the way that my grandparents still laugh after experiencing the Nakba, because that otherwise you've died, in my view of things.
Yeah, tell me about your grandparents and what stories you learned from them growing up.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets depressing. Like, I can't even make like can't even make this funny. Yeah, my grandparents really went through a lot of hard stuff, and I don't even know honestly the half of it because they're not interested really in talking about it, and they would rather move forward. And I'm sure it's a really troubling time. But from what I've heard secondhand from my parents, on my dad's side in Haifa, my great grandpa was murdered by an explosive planted in a supermarket, which again we talk about like terrorism. That is the definition of terrorism, and it was planted by like these early Zionist militias that were attacking civilians in order to try and gain support for the state of Israel. And then on both sides, my four grandparents were all separated from their parents, even the ones who did live and survive. The rest of my great grandparents, the other three, were exiled to, I believe it was Lebanon. Again, like the fact that I don't even know this says a lot about how little we really talk about it. And I think reclaiming the story is important to like really working through it. But until my grandpa was an adult, he didn't see his mother who was alive on the other side of this manufactured border that was created and militarized. And so all that said, this is like the history that we're talking about that is like the original sin of this cycle of violence that we're seeing in my homeland. And again, the fact that my grandpa is still one of the funniest people to this day that I know, despite having been through that. And on top of that, I also want to say that in the as horrible as that all sounds, my grandparents were sort of the lucky ones who got to remain in their ancestral homeland as living as orphans, despite their parents being alive. Um, and were, ultimately, especially because they were Christian, that also gave them a leg up. So it's like it's actually really like a dark history. Nazareth was one of the few places that wasn't fully exiled in 1948. So a lot of factors there, but I can't help but think every day that it would have taken one tiny thing to change for my grandparents to have been sent to Gaza to be refugees in the rest of the Arab world. And I wouldn't be a musical theater writer calling you from a New York City apartment. I would be maybe in a refugee tent, or worse, of what we've seen in Gaza these past 3 years in particular, but extending far beyond that.
Wow. Do they live in New York now?
No, they do. Also, sorry, I totally spun the direction here. I went from the high comedy to
No, of course, that's the journey. The show is called
yeah,
War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war.
absolutely.
It wouldn't be the show if we didn't get to the real shit. In that case, yeah, that's what I'll leave that to Paul Bontarek on Broadway.com. I wonder if he'd ask about the Nakba when it gets to
Yeah.
Broadway.
Great point. And we'll see if it ever gets to Broadway for that reason. No, my grandparents are everyone, entire extended family is still back in Israel, Palestine. And that, I mean, speaking of the title of this show, War is Stupid, I mean, especially my family in Haifa right now has been in bomb shelters amidst, Iran's attacks because of this war that Bibi and his warmongering, he got exactly what he wanted. And Trump was, clearly wants it too. And the American people are suffering, and my family is now at risk as well. So I can't help but feel especially just it's a painful, darkly comedic like frustration and anger at the system where somehow everyone is always at risk. The people are always at risk at the hands of these warmongers.
And yeah, meanwhile, your Netanyahu is partying it up in Miami. Everyone's at risk except for the people making the decisions, putting said people at risk. Like all the schmucks, like insulated from the consequences from their actions, leaving everyone else's families to suffer. Is there a family WhatsApp group? Like,
Fuck yeah.
yeah,
I put it on mute a long time ago
yeah.
and rarely check it. But yeah, it's usually it's more fun memes and gifs, and now it's a lot more news articles and checking in to be safe. Is a lot of it's sometimes in Hebrew, which I don't understand. My mom's a linguist, speech pathologist, so I think her big like protest action was teaching me Arabic, but not Hebrew. So,
That's so interesting. Yeah, right. Everything is political, even.
yeah. And I have a joke about that where I say like, this talking point that Palestinians teach their kids to hate. You know that one? Yeah, it's actually true. Because my parents, when I was younger, again, they didn't teach me Hebrew. So when they would fight, and again, they are divorced in real life, so they would fight a lot. When they would fight, they would do it in Hebrew, so I didn't understand what they were fighting about. The problem is that now I'll be walking around New York City, I hear Hebrew, and my mind goes immediately to this triggered childlike state of my parents fighting, and I'm like, this is, yeah, they taught me to
Yeah,
hate.
it's yeah, the language of not just the conflicts, but their conflict.
Exactly. Anyway, this is the humor of the show that you can see. We're dealing in a really dark sense of humor, that I hope is subversive and again, like reclaims some power, but also is funny too. And that is a hard tightrope to walk. And sometimes maybe I've fallen off the tightrope, and um, other days, maybe I'm still balancing.
And also, like the melodies themselves are super fun. Before we started recording, um, tell us about the song. Yeah, get on the bus, which is soon to become, as you mentioned, the song of the summer. If we could get Mayor Cardamom to collab on it.
That's my plan. I did release it on election week, in honor of the free buses to come, and would love to get Mr. Cardamom get on this. Would love for you to feature on the remix. Yeah, no, that song is so ridiculous. It's the uncle character of Fouad after he exits the airport after his interrogation. He enters the parking lot. He doesn't know what to expect. He thinks he's just visiting family, and his uncle shows up in this massive charter bus, and he sings this song called "Roll with Us." I'm gonna forgive you, Orly, for calling it
Oh, yes,
"Get
I'm
on the
so
Bus."
sorry. Yeah.
No, it's totally cool. Sometimes I call it that too, the bus song, which maybe that is an alternate title or in parentheses. But that song actually like really unlocked that on top of this pop punk sound that we have for Fuad coming from New York, we also have this sort of Arabic infused element where, again, I am not the one to write very like traditional, very like authentic Arabic music. So it's more so like this weird amalgamation of Arabic vibes. I sampled some like electro pop Arabic stuff on there. And then also like musical theater, obviously, and then also my like alt rock world. So it's a weird song. People seem to find it very catchy, me included. Yeah, is that the info that people want?
Yes. And so is the funny uncle? Is that a real dude?
He's okay. That is a common question. My mom is like, absolutely, this is her brother. Like and it's so embarrassing because she'll call him and be like, oh, like one time she FaceTimed him with the actor Sam Sayed, who plays my uncle in the show, and is like, look, you're meeting yourself. And I'm like,
Oh my
Mom, no,
gosh.
it's not him. You can't tell him that because it also isn't just him. It's like a mix of all the uncles we've all met. And I'm sure some other influences and but he definitely has some many uncle characteristics,
And I'm sure,
is what I'll
like,
say.
two people come up to you after the show. They're like, "How do you know my uncle?" Like,
I have had that experience, yes. It's that unfiltered. I wonder if I'm going to get to this point where I'm just like this, because he's such an unfiltered character who's so loving and so caring, and yet such a stickler and such like a will kick you while you're down. It's a strange form of love that I think many cultures share. Um, and that's sort of what the character is. Also, I just realized that this whole episode, I've neglected to mention that my team who works on this show, they really heighten it to a new level. So for the concept album, it's this incredible band that comprises of Ben Cavello, who's our music director, Nathan Repaz on drums, Jenny Chiamanco on bass, and my fellow singers, Sam Sayed, Sahar Malani, Leanna Wezini. Also, we have a feature from Zafar Tawil, if you know him, on Derbekki, amazing artist, was recently on Miss Rachel. Is if you're in New York and you see any Arabic music, Zelfit is probably a part of it. So
Oh, incredible. Yeah. What is that instrument? I'm not familiar.
yeah, Dorbeki. I usually have one here, but I just use it for a gig. So I took it to my new place. But it's like a percussion instrument that I'm sure you've seen. A doumbek is another usual name, like for a similar instrument. The people you can hear it for yourself on Roll With Us on the concept album, which one more credit, big credit, two big credits. The producer mixer on the album, his name is Henry Reinach, amazing artist and has just done incredible work. Oh, mainly at the power station at Berkeley NYC, where we got to record the album. It's where a lot of Broadway cast albums record, most of them. So that's another cool like feather in our cap. Um, and it was all funded by the Pop Culture Collab, and executive produced by Noor Theater, including our director Sivan Battath. I think I got most of the names out of the way.
Amazing. You're ready for the Tonys. Like you have the list handy. And
I think the Jonathan Larson Grant is the closest I'm getting to Tony Orley.
or you never know. I saw Giants, which is that play about Roald Dahl being an anti-Semite, and that was the playwright's first play. Like, which is wild that then now it's on Broadway. Yeah, you never know. I'm selfish because I'm like, we need this show because I've been so bored at the theater. I mentioned
That makes
earlier,
most of us.
yeah, like the only musical that I really remember seeing this past season was Ragtime, which is excellent. And then
Love Ragtime.
you mentioned that it resonated with you as a Palestinian.
Yes, yeah. So I got to watch again when I was in this program at Berkeley NYC, this 1 year master's. Weekly, we would go to the Lincoln Center Theater on Tape archive. I don't know if
Oh
you've
my
heard of
God,
it.
Toft, it's the best.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so the best. Did I mess it up? Theater on film and tape? Is that what the F
Yes.
is? There it is. Highly recommend. You can watch again these Broadway shows, their original casts on Broadway, like very professionally recorded. So that was the first time I got to experience Ragtime. And I mean, again, I think what I told you is that every time I see that show, I see Palestine in it, right? And I see like the story of settler violence is connected to racial violence. I don't know. It's just like you see the trajectory of someone being driven to violence as a form of resistance, which I think is a topic honestly that I'm scared shitless to talk about.
Hmm.
As like a very privileged person in New York City who is not experiencing daily like violence on behalf of a state, right? And in my next musical, by the way, which maybe we can talk about at some point, that is something I want to just explore more. But I think in Ragtime, you really see like a character driven to that like form of violence, and yet are very like understanding of that person as a human. And it's just, I think, excellent writing. And Ahrens and Flaherty and Terrence McNally like are, I mean, I think have created like theater history. I just remember seeing it and being like, I didn't know musicals could be this political. And the fact that they show the intersections of other identities and how sometimes we also, some communities, like we betray each other sometimes as well. Like how the one character, the immigrant, who ends up becoming part of like this system, becomes rich and famous and sort of leaves behind like the life and his fellow immigrants in that process. And I couldn't help but think of like how the Arab community has embodied whiteness in a lot of ways, literally on the census. And this case of a man who argued to a court that he was white because he's from the same place Jesus Christ is from, a Syrian American named George Dow, who that's why now sometimes when you bubble in, you might see white or Middle Eastern. I think
Wow.
it's finally changing. But yeah, there's a crazy story there, but it really embodies what the Arab community, in America has sort of tried to like be proximate to power in a way. And we can talk about, there's one line in my musical, to bring it back to the musical, one line in my musical, because again, I had these notes from when I was at the summer camp. And again, I'm coming from New York. I went to the same progressive private school that Zohran went to. So I was like, I was woke. I was woke. Okay. Um, and I walk in and suddenly these kids in Nazareth are saying the N word and talking about like gay people being sinners and, all these things that I was like, whoa, that I had to like talk back to. Right. So there's this one line in the musical where I incorporate this. And actually, there's a whole plot line as well of like a queer relationship. Woke wins again.
Yeah.
But it's more of a subversive take on it, and it's a way to have our protagonist end up sort of alone, which I haven't really seen in many musicals. So I thought that was anyway. We can talk about it. I want to subvert all the tropes, including love triangles. But there's this line where Layla, this character, is showing Fouad the ropes. She's a camp regular at Camp Nazareth. She's also a diaspora kid. She lives in Toronto, and she tells Fouad that you have to change everything about yourself in order to fit in here. That's your way of existing here. That's how you survive. And she has this one line where she says, um, uh, we all find our home here unless you're Muslim or black or queer. And then Fuad's like, wait, what? And he's like, and she's like, Americans should be fine though. Anyway,
Yeah.
and that's on the album. But I think that was an important line for me to show, like, yeah, there are people in every community who are not the most progressive on a lot of things, and we still have a long way to go to like see our collective struggles. And I think Gaza has united a lot of people on that front. Um, and I hope we continue to like fight as a collective in the style of union organizing, as opposed to letting the powers that be continue to separate us. Wow, I sound like a fucking politician.
No,
I'm so
that's
sorry.
amazing. Yeah, you should.
I'm a musical theater writer.
Yeah, are there any other? I loved your read on Ragtime. Are there any other musicals that you saw as Palestinian? Because it's one of my dad's catchphrases for anything is like, oh well, that's the story of the Jewish people. Like, oh, but Roald Dahl may be an anti-Semite, but Matilda's an underdog. That's the story of the Jewish people. Or growing up, The Lion King all the time. He's like, yeah, the circle of life moves us all through despair and hope, through and faith and love.
Wait, it's Moses was the baby
Shit,
Lion
maybe,
King?
yeah. Simba, Moses going to. Oh my God. Honestly, The Lion King, I
Are
know
we
it's
onto
like
something?
Hamlet, but it also is a biblical allegory. Like he's raised by Timon and Pumbaa outside of his home, and then comes.
Betrayed by Judas? Or
Yeah, his
what's the
uncle.
Mufasa? Yeah.
Oh no, Mufasa's the dad. I will take. Scar is the
I'm so
uncle.
sorry.
Exactly.
I'm
No one can sully Mufasa's good name. Not on this
sorry, Mufasa.
podcast. Yeah.
During the lawsuit too against the writer of it, that's I don't know if you're following that case.
No. Oh my God. There's
There's
actual Mufasa drama.
well, the composer of the theme song for Lion King is suing a comedian who made a hilarious joke telling people that the lyrics translate from that iconic opening scene, translate to like, look, there's a lion. Like, hilarious and very clearly like, not being serious. But the composer's suing him for like millions and millions of dollars.
Oh my
Anyway, it's a
gosh.
very important free speech case of our time,
Yeah,
much like Afro Man's case, recent victory. I don't know if you followed that.
I heard when he won. Um,
Yes.
but fucking, uh, um, someone a Disney alum, that's punching down, man. Going after a stand up.
I
That's so
hope it's a clear-cut
interesting.
case, but it's
Yeah, throw that on out.
yeah. Now, if it was a Palestinian, who made the joke, maybe he has a shot.
Yeah.
That's what free speech. Throw that down the drain.
But yes, the original question, any other musicals that like can help maybe open people's minds if they were closed before?
I mean, okay, here's a hot take that I've thought about for a long time. Fiddler on the Roof. Like, I watched
Yes.
that story and I'm like,
It's right
oh,
here.
this is the story of the Nakba. There it
Yeah.
is. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, one of the best musicals ever written, but also, again, is a universal sort of story in that way. And when I first saw it in middle school, like 8th grade, I remember being like, oh, wait, this is like my grandparents' story.
Wow.
And there's something to be said there. And I got to shout out, I was in a mini reading of a musical that I think is no longer, I don't know maybe we need to revive it now that Palestinian musical theater is on the map again. There was a show called Tradition, a musical that was about a Palestinian kid in a production of Fiddler in his high school and sort of that connection. So
That's so
shout out
cool.
and you might know, do you know Danny Brick, amazing actor, got a shout out him, Avi Amon, amazing composer, and Mike
Yes.
Masalam was the team. Yeah, incredible team on that. So I say bring it back. I don't want to be the only Palestinian musical theater writer. It's right now it's me and Lure Yassin, if anyone knows Lure. I'm just trying to give all the shout outs while I have a platform before ICE takes me after this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And thank you. I don't want to go full Rogan, so we can wind down. Where can people find you, Fouad, and Fouad of Nazareth?
Yeah. So I'm at NOT Fouad, Fouad, on all the platforms, not Fouad, which is a little confusing to people. And then Fouad of Nazareth on all the things, Fouad of Nazareth. And the concept album, again, is out on all streaming platforms. So check it out. Let me know what you think. And thank you again, Orly, for having me on.
Of course, I'll have it linked right here so you don't even have to go away. And so you can listen to Roll With Us right off the bat. I wanted an excuse to get the name right.
You got it right. One more shout out we should point out. The Yes and Laughter Lab Comedy Festival,
Yes,
which I think that's how we really connected. It's amazing
100%.
organization, y'all. Yeah,
That's where I first
you should do it. You're the
saw.
original. They enlisted you first. Tell the people about y'all if you haven't already.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, y'all is the Fellowship for Comedy Projects with Social Justice Themes. So I'm from the class of 2025. Fouad is class of 2026. And yeah, I'll send a link there too. And I first saw the musical as part of their festival last year. So War is Stupid wouldn't have happened without them. So you have them to blame.
No, they're an amazing Oregon. Their festival, they do a yearly comedy festival, and the last one was just recently, and Orly had a show as well there. So, you know, shout out to them and go apply. I think now the fellowship for next year is open.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. I can't recommend it enough. They treat us so well. Like, did you go out to LA
I
for
did,
pitch training?
and
Wasn't that cool?
it was awesome.
It's like,
And it's an all-star group who are so like giving and generous and actually just want to see these projects made, you know?
yeah, we deserve so much better than the what's it called?
I'm like, who are you going to call out
I know.
right now?
I was gonna say, I feel comfortable. I can say Malcolm in the Middle. We don't need that reboot, especially seeing how
Hey, one of my friends is in it.
I'm
Amazing Broadway
sorry.
actor.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so
Take it back. No. But even she posted recently and was like, love that I'm doing this, but the real thing that I'm excited about is this musical that I'm doing. And so I'm sure it pays the bills for somebody.
yes, exactly. But there are so many projects out there waiting to be made. And yeah, if you're listening to this and you have a production company, get in touch because either us or our friends, there's so many things that are just ready to go and even have concept albums for that you can listen to right now.
And
So
I've already probably scared off a lot of people. So just to reiterate, the Rogan joke, Rogan, bring me on 3
yes,
hours. I can do it. I won't smoke any weed with him, but we'll sit there. And then also Malcolm in the Middle. If you need a new Malcolm for the reboot of the reboot in a
yes,
couple of years, please consider me.
life's still unfair. Life continues to be unfair, which
Fortunately, it might be. And war continues to be stupid.
yes, amen. Thank you so much, Fouad. Thank you for listening and or watching War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. Please subscribe, rate and review, tell your dads. We'll see you next time.